Hey guys, Political Junkie 2414 here, and welcome back to my next 2024 United States Senate election related video. Today we're going to be going over the senators up in the next Senate election in the next election cycle who have already announced that they are retiring or are have a chance to retire, have not made a decision yet, or have but have a different they have there's a possibility that they do run for another office or just plain old retire if they change their mind. But before we get into that, I wanted to make sure that or not make sure, but wanted to wish you all a good day. I hope you are having a good day, and I also wanted to send my sincerest condolences to the families in Monterey Park, California. The families who lost some of their members in that tragic shooting at a Lunar New Year festival. I am deeply saddened to hear that these mass shootings continue to occur, and that we have to and that more people continue to die. It is and that more families lose and the more families lose some of their loved ones. It's not something anybody should go through, and it is deeply sad. And I just wanted to say that I wanted to acknowledge it, because it is important that we bring up these things, even if they are hard to talk about. Um, so, anyways, getting on with the topic of this video, we're going to be going over the two U.S. senators that have retired, and why the retirement issue is a lot more potent, or has a lot more potential impact on Democrats than it does Republicans. So, if you've been watching some of my previous 2024 Senate videos, or just are familiar with these with the map in general, you can see that it is very unfavorable to Democrats, at least when it comes to the exposure factor. And the exposure factor is basically something. It's basically this concept of which party has more vulnerable seats. And as you can see on this map, Republicans only have to defend 11 seats, 9 of which are in safe red states. Nebraska has two Senate elections, so that's why there's a little square right there. But the remaining 23 seats are all held by Democrats, or 20 of these remaining seats are held by Democrats, and the other three, Arizona, Vermont, and Maine, are held by independents who caucus with the Democrats. So overall, Democrats have 23 seats to defend, and that makes retirement a lot, more. It makes the potential for a mass exodus from the party. And in certain states, certain deep red states like Montana and West Virginia, if these incumbents decide, if the incumbents here decide not to run, that would pretty much doom Democrats' chances of winning these seats. And the GOP only needs to get at least two, or at most two, to win back the majority if Democrats win the presidency. But if Republicans win the presidency, they would only need to get one, because then the 51-49 majority would be go to 50-50. And if there's a Republican president, there will be a Republican vice president who would break the 50-50 tie in the Senate. So overall, this map is not favorable to Democrats, and we already have a couple of retirements, one from a Democrat, one from a Republican. And I guess that this, my point about the retirement factor being a much bigger issue for Democrats than Republicans is kind of expressed here. So the sole Republican incumbent who's announced he is retiring is Indiana Senator Mike Braun, who was first elected back in 2018. He defeated Democrat Joe Donnelly, who was elected in 2012. But Braun has decided to run for governor, as the incumbent Republican governor Eric Holcomb is term limited and may actually run for the seat, which would make it that these two that Braun and Holcomb might actually trade off jobs. But either way, Indiana is going to have a very interesting primary, and that could be messy for Republicans. But overall, it's a red state, and it's not doesn't have really any chance of going to the Democratic Party, even though it's more blue down ballot. But in Michigan, this is a competitive state, and you have the Democratic incumbent here, Debbie Stabenow, who announced a couple of weeks ago, I think it was the first week of the new Congress, that she would not be running for re-election. And this was a bit of a surprise to a lot of people. I was not expecting it. I knew that there was a possibility of it, but she had announced that she intended to run, but she went back on her decision. It's not necessarily something that is, it didn't shock me, but it did surprise me because there have been senators in the past who have announced that they're running for reelection or that they plan to, and then they ultimately go back on that decision. But in Michigan, there's going to be a really nasty Democratic primary. But overall, it's a state that I think it is clearly a blue leaning state. It was very good for Democrats this year, uncharacteristically blue. And yes, that was because of the Roe v. Wade issue and the fact that the Republicans did not nominate very strong nominees in many of the House races, and especially not in the governor's race. But at the end of the day, Michigan still does lean blue. It's probably going to vote for Joe Biden or whoever the Democratic nominee is at the presidential level. Um, you know, and so while I do expect Michigan to stay blue, but I would put it as a lean D race as of right now, and it is definitely not safe for the Democrats, although I do think they have an advantage there. And so as you can see, a safe red state has a retiring GOP incumbent, going to make for a very interesting primary, but ultimately not likely to affect the general. In Michigan, the GOP does not have a very good bench of candidates, which I think is why, and Michigan just overall leans blue. It has a strong Democratic coalition. I do, and I think that that is going to keep, that is going to prevent Republicans from breaking Democrats' winning streak in Senate races here. But overall, it is definitely not guaranteed that they win that they hold on to this seat. Although it wasn't necessarily a guarantee of stabbing out either. But I think that that not having an incumbent here does make it a little bit more complicated. So now we're going to go into the actual potential retirements, and we're going to go from the West Coast to the East Coast, and just talk about the incumbents that I think are the most likely to retire. We've seen surprise retirements before, but a lot of these senators have already announced that they plan to run for reelection or that they are. Again, that doesn't mean that they ultimately will, but it really does end up it really does depend. So the first potential retirement is in California, where you have Democratic incumbent Dianne Feinstein, who is 89 years old, almost 90, will be 90 in just a couple of months from now. Who could very well, and who likely will retire due to her age, but at the same time, I think there is a chance that she does run for reelection, and she could actually lose the jungle or the all-party primary to someone like Katie Porter, the congresswoman from Southern California, who's actually announced that she is running. Feinstein has said that she's planning to announce her decision, or she's expected to make a final decision by spring of this year. Whether or not she runs for reelection, I'm not exactly sure. I think a lot of people have said she is 100% not going to run. I don't think she will, but I think that if she does, run, I think there's a very good chance that she would lose, the primary, especially against another Democrat, or if she survives the primary, makes it to the general. I think that there's a good chance that it's between two Democrats because California uses an all-party primary system, so she could honestly lose reelection even if she doesn't run. She definitely there have been a lot of allegations surrounding her about her age and about her I guess her ability to serve. There have been claims from many of Feinstein's many longtime members of Feinstein's staff that she has a very hard time remembering people's names and will often reintroduce herself in the middle of conversations. Whether those accusations are true or not, I'm not sure. Make of that what you will. But overall, I think that in my personal opinion, that Feinstein shouldn't run. But again, this is just who is likely to retire, not who will retire or who should. The next retirement that we have here, or the potential retirement, is in Utah. We have Republican incumbent Mitt Romney here, who seems to be running for reelection. I will say that this is a this is a state where we could have a very interesting primary between Romney and someone like Sean Reyes, the Utah Attorney General, who has been long rumored as a primary challenger to Romney. And so I do think that Romney, he's been in politics for a very long time. He would likely win the primary, but he is definitely not the he is one of the most unpopular senators in the whole country. He's down there. He I think he is approved of, but only by a slight amount. So definitely more. I think he's more unpopular than Mike Lee. He is not, but he is definitely a more traditional Republican. He gets he would not, end up winning by 10 points like Lee did, and that was also because Evan McMullen was a very good candidate for the independent or Democratic coalition, even though he was an independent, but he got the Democratic coalition. So Utah could be interesting there. I think Romney runs for re-election, but we'll just have to wait and see. Up here in the state of Montana, we have Democratic incumbent John Tester, who could and who is going to be in a very competitive race if he does run. But Tester has proven himself as a very strong. He's proven himself as a very strong candidate, but he has said that he is truly undecided, which is not something that I personally expected. I thought that Tester was pretty clearly going to run for re-election, but it does seem like he is uh, there is a very good chance that he does end up, hanging up or leaving the job. And if he does, that would make Montana pretty much an auto flip for Republicans. I think that Democrats really don't have a chance at holding on to this seat without Tester. I think he's going to run, and I think that he could very well win. Right now, I don't think he's going to. Even if he does, right now I don't think he would. But there's definitely a realm. It's within the. It's a realistic scenario to it's within the realm of possibility that he does end up winning if he does run. Now the next retirement, we go down to the state of Texas. Ted Cruz, he has announced that he is running for re-election, and I don't think that he's going to go back on his word. But he has still not, declined that he will be running for president. And personally, I don't think he would win the primary at this rate. I think that it's really going to be a battle between Trump and DeSantis. Right now, I think Trump has a slightly more, there's a slightly higher chance that he does end up winning, the Republican nomination. Cruz, I think, he's pretty unpopular. He's definitely not, there with he's definitely not popular with Texans. A lot more unpopular than a Greg Abbott. So I do think that he would face a competitive general election, but I still think he would end up winning because Texas is still a red leaning state. It's going down the same path I think that Arizona and Georgia have, but I do think that it is ultimately a harder state to flip for the Democrats. I think on in federal races it will be easier for them. I think that's where Texas is going to first end up flipping, just like Arizona and Georgia did. But down ballot, it's going to be red for at least it's going to be red for a decent amount of time. But overall, I think that Cruz is going to run for re-election. I don't think he, is going, I don't think he's going to run for president. Even if he does, he might drop out early and he, just might resume his Senate campaign. Yeah, that is it for Texas. Now, we have a lot of retirements here up in the northeastern area. We're going to start off, though, in Appalachia with West Virginia. Joe Manchin still has not made a decision on whether or not he's going to run for re-election. If he does run for re-election, I think that he would give Democrats a chance at winning this race. But as we've seen with senators like Heidi Heitkamp in North Dakota, Claire McCaskill in Missouri, and Joe Donnelly in Indiana, these states were just too, red for the Democratic incumbents to ultimately end up holding on to, even in a blue wave year like 2018. And that was the main reason why the Republicans made gains in the Senate that year, despite losing multiple governorships and losing the House in a landslide to the Democrats. So West Virginia, I do think Manchin would lose, by high single digits if he does end up running. I think right now, you know, he will run, but his approval ratings ever since his agreement to work on the to vote for the Build Back Better plan. He is, gone from being the most popular senator in the country to one, down there with Mitch McConnell. He is disapproved of, I think, but in the that political morning console poll that got released a couple of weeks ago, I think it said that he was disapproved of by 13 points. So he is definitely not popular, but he's still, there's still a lot of ancestral Democrats in West Virginia who would vote for him, and that's why, I think that he would outrun Biden and he would give Democrats, a chance to hold on to this seat. But it's, he's definitely the most vulnerable incumbent on this map. on the Democratic side, and I think if he doesn't run, it's game over for West Virginia Democrats. They're not going to hold on to the seat. We saw in 2014 when Jay Rockefeller retired, Shelley Moore Capito, won the election by 28 points. It was almost an exact mirror of what Rockefeller won by in 2008. So that would be really bad for Democrats if Manchin does not run. But he may just decide to hang up the ropes. And I think but I do think he's going to run and ultimately lose anyway. So now we're going up into the northeastern area where we have a couple of potential retirements from Democrats in some safe blue states. In Maryland, you have Ben Cardin, the incumbent Democrat, who's been in Congress for a very, very long time. He has been in the Senate for about he's been in the Senate since 2000, or he got first elected in 2006. And he faced a somewhat competitive race, but since then, he's banked on the democratic nature, the strong democratic nature in Maryland, and he would easily win re-election if he did run again. But you know, he is going to be 81 years old in 2024. He's he's undecided. There's a big Democratic bench, I think, waiting in Maryland. There's a possibility that Jamie Raskin runs for Senate, although he does have cancer, so that may distract him from his campaign. But once again, if he makes a quick recovery, the Senate primary is not until next year. So uh, that there's there's potential for him to to still run and win. David Trone could also run, the representative from the sixth congressional district. But right now really could be any of them. I think any of them would win the general. Republicans don't have a chance in hell to win Maryland. But yeah, so that would just be another open, safe Democratic seat like Patrick Leahy's seat in Vermont was the in 2022. Now going over to Delaware, you have Tom Carper, who's been in the Senate since 2001. He defeated longtime incumbent Republican, I think his name was David Roth. Carper has pretty much been everywhere. He's been everything in Delaware politics. He's been the governor of the state. He has been the state's at large congressman, or the congressman for the state's at large congressional district, and he's been a senator for quite some time. So he's been everything. And he's going to be 77 years old, I believe, by 2024. I think he's 76 now, hitting that area. But either way, there's a very good chance that he does end up retiring, and that would make for an interesting Democratic primary. I think you could see, potentially John Carney run for Senate, the incumbent Democratic governor, or potentially Lisa Blunt Rochester, the current representative for the at-large district for the state. But either way, Delaware, it's a state that on paper should be really competitive. In fact, it should be a red state, honestly. But Democrats do have a really good coalition here, and I think long term it's kind of it's a weird state for Democrats. It could be competitive in the future, probably will be, but for now it is still a safe blue state. Now going up to New England, and we have two potential retirements up here with Vermont and Maine. You can make a case, I guess, for Sheldon Whitehouse or potentially Bob Casey because of his cancer. Because and Whitehouse hasn't even given any clue to how he's leaning yet, but I think he's going to run. But really, we have Bernie Sanders and Angus King up here, both of these independent senators who caucus with the Democrats, or both of these people, caucus with the Dems, and both of them could very well retire. I think in many cases, Bernie Sanders, he is 81 years old. He's going to be 83 by the time we reach the November 2024. And I don't think he's going to run for president. I think he's declined to run for president. And I think a lot of people, even some of his supporters have acknowledged that he is way too old to run. If he does run for re-election to his Senate seat, he would be 89 by the time, if he serves out his full term. So overall, I think, and he's been in Congress for 32 years, so he has had a good run. He's done a lot for the progressive coalition, for of the Democratic Party. He's just he's really he's done his part. He's done his part to serve the state of Vermont, and I think that there's a very good chance that he acknowledges that and decides to go down the path that Leahy did, and retire, which I think could make room for someone like Becca Balint to potentially run for the seat. She got elected to the state's at-large congressional district this past November. She is the first woman to represent Vermont in Congress, and I think there's a very good chance that she could run and potentially win this race. So yeah, Vermont not going to be competitive, doesn't have a chance to go to the GOP, but it's just a matter of whether or not Bernie runs. And finally, Maine. This is one that I think a lot of people have kind of been interested in. I'm very interested in seeing whether or not Angus King decides to run for a third term. He says that he plans to, but just like we saw with Stabenow, that does not make it certain that he is going to run. If he doesn't run, I think that this is a likely Democratic race. I think someone like Sarah Gideon could run for re-election or could run for the seat and potentially win it. I know that she lost to Susan Collins, but that was she was going up against a very unique type of candidate from Maine. I think you could also see, Shelley Pingree, the representative from the first congressional district, or potentially Jared Golden run for this seat. But potentially even Janet Mills, the governor of Maine. So you could see a really interesting primary up here. But ultimately, Maine's still the blue state. It was kind of close in 2016, but I think there's not going to be much contention up here for the general election. I think Golden could potentially make this safe, but I don't know if he's going to run. I know there's been a lot of talk about it, but I think he's, kind of the mentality that he was elected to be a representative and that he's going to stay that way. So yeah, Angus King, I think will run for re-election. Until he announces his decision, I'm keeping it. Until he says he's not, I'll keep it as safe blue. But there's a good chance it's a likely D race. So I think that's a fair characterization too. It just kind of depends on what happens here. So in total, we have 9 potential retirements. I see at least 9 potential retirements on the board for 2024. We have 2 currently retiring, which would mean that there will be 11 open seats. This would be quite a big, amount of, vacancies. To be honest, I think that some of these senators, will probably retire. Like if you made me make you if you gave me a list of who are the most likely on this list to retire, I'd probably say Dianne Feinstein's at the top. Then you'd probably have Ben Cardin up there, then Angus King, I'd say, then Tom Carper, and probably Bernie Sanders would follow that. And yeah. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Click the turn on notifications so you don't miss more content like this, and share it with your friends and family. Who you think would people you think would enjoy it. And yeah, I hope you all enjoy the video. Check out my non-political channel, Interactor127, and my comrades channel, Growling Zoo 666. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time when I talk about all things politics. See ya.